to another video. If you're new here, hi, my name is Irit and I'm a watercolor and mixed media artist, and on my channel I love to talk about watercolors and paint with watercolors. Today's video is short and sweet and much requested, so I will show you, this will probably be part 1 of 2 or 3, some of my superstar watercolors. That means watercolors that are either unique or that I find the formulation and color to be the best. So that's how you get into my superstar palette. I stopped having different palettes for different brands a few years ago because I decided that I just want the best of the best in my palette, and I'll share with you some of those picks today, and I'll explain those to you so you can decide if it's a color you might like to try. And as I said, in order for a watercolor to be a superstar, it needs to be special or it needs to be better than other brands' versions. So let's get into it. Quick stamp update. I will be doing a restock soon, including a brand new set, the third one, which features the stamp that you see now on screen. And I love that stamp. It's basically, kind of like a swatch stamped with a few lines to allow you to have some more information, which I like it when things are a little bit more organized because I'm very messy. But I also have to tell you that this is probably the most boring stamp of that set. So lots of fun things that I want to show you, but yeah, I have to, put all my ducks in a row and then I will share everything with you. So, of course, my camera was switched off as I was swatching my first 2 colors, so forgive the still image, but after I talk about these 2, we will get to see some video and not just still photos. So my first superstar is Schmincke's Naples Yellow, and Naples Yellow is a color that pretty much every brand makes. But what I like about the Schmincke one is that it's a very kind of creamy, buttery, almost pastel, I would say, version of Naples Yellow. Whereas other brands' versions tend to be a little bit less buttery. That's always the word that pops up when I try to describe this color. So the color is not unique, but I think the way that Schmincke did it is my most favorite. As you can see, there are 3 pigments here, including white. So it does kind of muddy up mixtures, but I really, really like mixing it with transparent, very vibrant pinks, and I find that the results give me exactly those wonderful kind of watermelony, corally, peachy colors, which I personally love. So obviously this to me is the best, the superstar, but you might like something completely different from your Naples Yellow. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to explain to you why I like a certain color so you can understand if it would work for you as well. Now, another great version, which is vegan friendly, which is probably what I'll switch to when I run out of my Schmincke tube, is the My Merry Blue version. I think they have like 3 versions of Naples Yellow, but I'll try to find my tube. It's very, very similar, also really lovely and buttery. And yeah, it's a good alternative. Again, easier to get in Europe because that brand is Italian, Schmincke is German. And I think from Daniel Smith, I think they have a color that is kind of similar. I'll try to pop it down in the comments. I think it's a little bit more yellowy and not as kind of a warm, leans less orangey than the Schmincke Naples Yellow, but it does have that kind of buttery yellow, feel to it. So moving on to number 2, which is the Qor Quinacridone Gold. Now, Quinacridone Gold is a color that is very, very popular, has been talked about endlessly, it seems. There was a whole thing with the pigments, the kind of the original pigment, which I think ran out worldwide, and so brands switched to a different pigment. I'm not that particular about it, and I think there are a lot of really lovely versions of Quinacridone Gold. Daniel Smith makes a beautiful version. Also, the newer one, in my opinion, is lovely. What I like about the Qor one is the formulation of Qor paints. They push other paints away, and you can get that effect if you use their watercolor medium. If you add it to whatever yellow you're using, chances are it's going to push other colors away. I just happen to have this tube, so I'm going to use it till I run out of it, and then I don't know what I'll do because Qor is very, very expensive. But I may replenish just this tube because I love using yellow as kind of a pop of color, a highlight, something I sprinkle at later stages of my painting when I usually already have other colors on my paper. And it's a very light color, yellow, and so it muddies up very easily. But having that formula that kind of pushes the other colors away mean that I can sprinkle it in like a darker color where like a shadow would be, and it won't just get swallowed up. It won't just get muddy. You know what I mean? So I really, really love using pushy yellows. It doesn't have to be Qor. Other brands also have just like specific pigments that are more pushy. For example, another favorite of mine is the Daniel Smith Nickel Titanate Yellow, which you can actually see on the screen on a different swatch that I made there. And that one is also pushy. So it doesn't have to be Qor. I guess you just have to find those colors that do that. And I really, really like that quality in a bright yellow. Let's move on to some film and actual swatching. Next, we have one of my precious, more recent discovery. I would say probably in the last year or in 2021. I think I really got to know this color. And this is Lukas Naples Yellow Reddish. Now, Schmincke actually also has a color by that name that is really lovely, but it is much more kind of pastel and kind of looks like a Caucasian light skin tone, whereas the Lukas version it's basically, I would say, an orange, but a really good orange. And again, it gives me very nice mixtures when I mix it with my very poppy bright pinks. Really, really love that color, and I think that version is very unique, and I really enjoy having it in my palette. Next, we have Van Gogh's Carmine, and this is not a very light fast color, but I just love this super vibrant, warm pink from Van Gogh. I haven't seen a Carmine that looks like this. It's incredibly bright. That's how I like my pinks these days, so that's just me. Like all Van Gogh paints, it is very affordable. The formula is very user-friendly, great for beginners, great for people on a budget. And this, to me, I feel is like one of their really nice colors. Next one. This is really my precious. This is my precious, and this formula actually needs a little bit of some care and attention before you start using it. You have to spray it and pet it a little bit to get it to be really juicy if you're not using it straight from the tube. And of course, this is Holbein Bright Rose. This is not a light fast color, although I have to tell you, I did do my own testing and I painted it, and I painted a swatch and I hung it on my window, which faces west. So it does get direct sunlight several hours a day, especially in the summer. And it was hanging there for, I want to say 7 or 9 months. And I hardly saw the difference. So I'm actually quite pleased with the light fastness of this paint. But yeah, it's like a fluorescent pigment. It's the most beautiful pink. Other brands make similar versions. Schmincke has something similar, and Sennelier as well, but I don't know, something about that Holbein, maybe it's just something not very logical. I love the Holbein one. It is vegan friendly, and I get it for a great price from Petels out in Berlin, I want to say, Germany anyway. Moving on, another precious, Cobalt Violet. So Cobalt Violet, in order to be my superstar Cobalt Violet, the color has to be properly formulated. This is a notoriously difficult to formulate pigment. It tends to be very dry, and so most tube versions you will encounter will be full of binder. That has been my experience. And also, it's a color that has a wide variety of versions when it comes to the color. So a lot of brands make a very blue Cobalt Violet, which I don't like. And then some brands like Winsor & Newton, Rembrandt, and Qor make a more pinkish version of it, which is what I personally like. Now, this is kind of sad because, you know, brands like Schmincke and Lukas, they formulate their watercolors very, very well, but they make these blue versions which do nothing for me. This is always a granulating color, which I love. And yeah, my superstar is definitely the Winsor & Newton version, and I would get the pan if you want to be the safest and avoid any dud tubes. Although the Winsor & Newton tube is also like solid, the formula. I don't mean that it's in a solid state, but it's reliable and good, at least the ones that I've tried. But the pan is a safer bet. However, Rembrandt is more widely available. For me, it's vegan friendly. And so I don't think the formulation is as great as Winsor & Newton, but it's good enough for me. And that is currently my superstar Cobalt Violet. You can see that big pan in that big well of Cobalt Violet in my palette. It's always there, and I refill it quite often because even though it's a good formula, it's still quite heavy on the binder. So I just find that I need to use more of it than with some other colors. Moving on to French Ultramarine. So currently, and in the last year probably, I'm now on to, I think, like my third tube. I have been using Rembrandt's version because I think it's beautiful, and I can get it for a really good price in a 20 milliliter tube. I go through a lot of this color. It's wonderful in mixes because of that granulation. And so for me, that's my current superstar. I have to say, I find French ultramarines to be incredibly similar. Some can be slightly, less reddish or slightly more granulating. For me, the more granulating, the better. But I do find them to be very, very similar. So I don't think it's worth to hunt down, the Rembrandt version if you have one that is working for you. I don't think it's particularly unique. It's just kind of a good all-rounder. Okay, moving on to another precious. This is Lukas Cobalt Turquoise. Now, what is great about this one, I have to say, I haven't met a cobalt color like this. Some brands call it teal. Daniel Smith calls theirs cobalt teal blue. Some brands call it cobalt turquoise. And then other brands have a cobalt turquoise that is actually a slightly more muted version, which is also beautiful. But I haven't met this kind of color that you see now on the screen that I didn't like. And I've tried many brands, Daniel Smith, and, well, a lot of them. Right now I'm blanking, but so it's a really, really beautiful color. It's usually made from PG50. That is the usual pigment. For some reason, Lukas makes theirs from PB28, which is usually the pigment you see for cobalt blue, which tends to be, I think, I don't know if it's the same price or slightly cheaper than the cobalt teals, the PG50. I'm not sure. But anyway, the Lukas version is huge. It comes in a 24 milliliter tube. It's a German brand. I'm in Austria. These are the brands, the German ones, the European ones that are the easiest for me to get, and the prices are the best. And Lukas is a very, very budget-friendly brand with their ginormous tubes. And this is just, it's a color that I love. It's a color that I use a lot. It's a color that can get pretty expensive. I can get a huge tube for a very good price. And that's why this is my current go-to. But I really love pretty much every version I've tried of this color. And so I would just recommend to add it to your palette. Look for PG50, unless you're looking for the Lukas one. But yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous color. Okay, so moving on to actually the first Daniel Smith color, and all four that I'm going to talk about now are actually Daniel Smith colors. So I've talked a lot about Daniel Smith on my channel. I'm in Europe. It is an expensive brand to get. I know it's also expensive in the US, but we also have to pay for, you know, shipping and import and customs and all those things. So I buy paints from Daniel Smith that I think are special or convenience colors, convenient mixtures for myself. That's what I buy. It's not my go-to brand because it's just more expensive and it's not local to me. So let's talk a little bit about these two greens. I don't like most greens that come from the tube, and I've tried many of them. And Daniel Smith did a really good job with a few of their greens, including Cascade green, Undersea green, zoazite, which I forgot to include in this video, and therefore I must include it in the next one, and olive green. So let's talk about these for a little bit. Let's start with Cascade green. As you can see it also in the close-ups at the beginning, and I'll add some more close-ups at the end. This is just a beautiful color. It's very, very on the blue side. I would say you can call it actually almost a turquoise and not green. But it's actually made from two very, very common pigments. One is raw umber, I want to say, and the other one is phthalo blue, which is very, very commonly used. Now, I don't like both of these on their own, and I don't have them in my palette. And while I do prefer to use if I use convenience colors, I try to have those colors in my palette. It's just sometimes just looks more harmonious. But this color in particular is such a successful mixture just as it is. It is the granulation, I guess, comes from the raw umber, and then you have that turquoise pop from the phthalo blue, which just creates a really, really lovely color. Now, Amazonite Genuine is kind of similar in tone, but I don't know, even though it's like less luxurious pigments in the Cascade green, I just prefer the Cascade green version. I just find it more interesting, and I really, really love the way that this color separates. Now, olive green is also a mixture of several pigments, and I just really like it. I was into all the green golds and gold greens for a very long time, but at some point I just found them to be a little too kind of vibrant, and they lacked depth of color for me. And the Daniel Smith olive green really, I felt it was like an upgrade in my personal preference, because I love having those earthy, yellowy, some still vibrant greens, but the gold green was just, it felt a bit garish, just my own personal preference. And so when I found the Daniel Smith version of olive green, I was really, really happy with it. It has more earthiness to it. It has more depth to it. And I really, really enjoy using it as kind of like a pop of color in my paintings. So those are my green superstars at the moment. I do have a couple more that I will have to talk about in another video. Okay, let's move on to the last two, and we're going to start with Moonglow. There's a lot of talk about Moonglow. This is another mixture of three pigments, and it's just, what can I say? To their defense, to Moonglow's defense, I find it to be just perfect the way that it is. I know the red pigment is not super light fast. I love this color. I continue to use it. I actually think, I have to look in my files. I think Aquarius has a very, very similar version, but This is a really unique mixture. You can make your own, but I think Daniel Smith just did a really, really good job with it. I really prefer these kinds of colors. I like to use them in darker mixes and use them as like darks in my paintings more than just grays. And yeah, Moonglow is just a favorite that I keep coming back to. I've been using it for years, went through several tubes, and I love it. Okay, last but not least, this has to be one of the most special colors I have in my stash. This is Daniel Smith Hematite Violet Genuine, and it is so special. I don't know if you have been able to kind of duplicate this color. Please let us know in the comments. This is an expensive tube, and you know, it's Daniel Smith, so outside of the US it's even more expensive. But if you just want like one special color to treat yourself to after you watch this video, that would be my pick. I find it very difficult to accurately describe this color. I don't think any other brand makes anything like this. If you know something, let us know in the comments. I would love to know. And it has, it's like a light pinky, like a pale pink with a very strong black or almost black granulation. And I have loved it for a long time, but kind of struggled to combine it with my other colors. And recently I feel like I have been more successful. And so I adore this color. And the texture is incredible. It's so unique. I really love it. It's definitely a superstar in my palette. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let us know in the comments what are your superstars, and tell us why, because I think that really helps people understand if it might work for them as well. Thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week with another video. Take care. Bye bye.